Events in the Persian Gulf region have once again underscored the need for a strong military. Highly skilled and well-equipped American forces must always be ready to protect our interests and those of our allies. An essential ingredient of preparedness is training. Training to teach new skills, training to keep them sharpened. And that's the subject of our first story. At Naval Air Station, Fallon, Nevada, new naval aviators are trained in the most difficult and perishable flying skill there is, visual air combat. With aircraft such as our FA-18 Hornet, the VFA 127 Desert Bogies prepare pilots for combat by simulating the conditions and enemy tactics they may someday face in battle.
The VFA 127 Desert Bogies provide threat aircraft simulation to visiting air crews here at NAS Fallon, Nevada. What we do is use the aircraft that we have, which are our own U.S. manufactured aircraft, to simulate threat aircraft that we may be in opposition against and throughout different regions in the world. And we would also simulate the threat tactics and actually perform in some cases fairly similar to the pilot that would be flying the aircraft. So we are the bad guys. We also provide air combat training within that mission also. To conduct our assigned mission, we're assigned 14 F-5 Tiger aircraft, and we also have 8 McDonnell Douglas F/A-18 Hornets. We can use the F-5E, which is in similar performance of, let's say, a MiG-21 aircraft. Same thing, the McDonnell Douglas F-18 is also a real good simulation, if properly flown, of the MiG-29 Fulcrum and the Su-27 Flanker. The Desert Bogies are comprised of 22 aviators. All these pilots have had a previous fighter or strike fighter tour aboard carriers deployed in either the East or West Coast. The typical visiting fighter or strike fighter squadron here at NAS Fallon will deploy here for approximately 2 weeks. So we actually get to reach out and touch each one of these aviators under training before they would go on deployment or possibly into combat. One of the key objectives we try to accomplish in training is for the survival of the fighter pilot in combat, to fly his aircraft to the limits of his aircraft capabilities and to also employ the weapon systems in the right parameters. We'll begin with the basic visual dogfighting arena where we'll match up, let's say, a fleet F/A-18 fighter against the F-5. We'll go from there into a little more complex where we'll involve 3 aircraft. We'll put that pilot up against 2 bogies, and then he'll actually do a radar intercept on those 2 aircraft. And then we'll give the pilot a wingman to work with, and now we'll get into a 2 versus 2 air combat. Then we graduate into what we'd call 2V unknown, where we'll actually place an unknown number of bogies out there, and then he'll go to the graduate level where we take 4 fighter aircraft against a larger number of threats. If you ask any Navy pilot anywhere, what kind of flying would he rather be doing, and he'll tell you he'd rather be out there doing air combat or dogfighting. It's the most demanding, it's the hardest to train to, and it's a very perishable skill, and if we don't continue working towards excellence, our skills will diminish very quickly.
There's the lineup. We've got the 254.
We get ready to go on a hop. It'll normally start out with the bogies, going over to, say we're fighting VFA 125 today, which are the students learning to fly the F-18. We'll go over to their ready room. about an hour or so prior to the launch, and we'll get together and we'll discuss briefing items. We'll go through the lineup, which aircraft each individual is flying with, who's going to be paired up, which students with which instructors. I'll get together with my particular student in the corner of the ready room, and we'll talk particulars on how we're going to conduct the hop. When that's over, we'll set up our debrief time, and we go ahead and walk to our respective airplanes, and we get ready to launch.
Well, the first thing that comes to your mind is, one, you know that you're up against experience. So you're probably not going to succeed at first. But that doesn't keep you from trying, and being competitive, I think that's in every one of us.
What we like to do is we'll start out with an eyeball count early on, where we take the student out there and we try to calibrate his eye to be able to recognize ranges of a hostile aircraft approaching him in some kind of weapons parameters. So he can determine what type of maneuver he needs to employ to defend against whatever threat he's looking at. All the modern technology and the radars and the radar missiles and all this is all great if you have the capability or the political authorization to say, okay, you can go out there and without seeing your potential threat, you can go ahead and employ weapons and take them out. And that's the way we'd like to do business. But real-world constraints, for the most part, say, we just can't go out there locking targets up with a radar and start to shoot missiles at them. So a lot of things degenerate into a visual arena.
Hey, high-fi, hot left. Make your tapes on, fights on.
Tapes on, fights on. That's kind of like saying this is when the experience is going to start to begin. This is when you're going to start learning everything. But this means, hey, showtime. We're getting ready to engage. It's time to rumble.
When you get out there and you get that tally-ho, in other words, you look across the circle there, you pick them up, hey, that's a hostile aircraft, you plant the stick in your lap, and when you put 7 Gs on the airplane, now you're 7 times your body weight basically in the seat there. Moving your head around with a helmet on it or trying to keep sight of your potential threat out there when you're trying to do all this tends to be a little bit of a workload. And the entire air combat maneuvering in the visual arena is nothing more than, for the most part, looking out of the cockpit and knowing what to do with your hands inside the F-18 cockpit with the hands-on throttle and stick system will allow you to employ all the weapons, sensors, and radar and weapons on the aircraft without even looking in the cockpit.
Like Yogi said, bottom line is the eyes out. That guy that you don't see is the guy that's usually going to shoot you, and that's what's all in your mind. Hey, I'm fighting 2v2, 2v unknown. Hey, there's a lot of guys out there, and I'm not seeing every one of them.
If he maneuvers his airplane or allows us to maneuver our plane into a potential threat or weapons envelope, and he allows us to employ that weapon, we will take a shot in parameters. Now it's up to the RP out there or the student pilot to go ahead and do some evasive tactics that would defeat whichever missile or gunshot he's presented with. If he doesn't do that, bottom line is the bogies will come up on the radio and we'll go kill the F-18 in a left-hand turn at 16,000 feet.
Left to left. Timeout, kill, Hornet.
Haji knows he's in a left-hand turn at 16,000 feet. He's dead. He'll go ahead and exit the fight at that point there. The important part is when they do go out there and the adversaries do get a shot on a fighter, that they take that back in the debrief and they sit down and they go, okay, why did we get shot today? And they go out on the next hop and they try it again. And if they succeed, they succeed. And if not, debrief it again and come back and try it again.
To me, I don't think there's a question as far as the importance of the adversary role. You need to know at all times your enemy and what he does, what he's doing, what he's thinking, because that's the person that you're going to be up against. But the key thing there is you go into battle, you want to be prepared, and the adversaries clearly do that for you. Without them, you're going in there with one hand tied behind your back.
Fortunately, the adversarial pilots don't win all the time. Commander Bill Wright says he's proud of the fact that because of the improved skills of the student pilots and U.S. tactics and weapons systems, the Desert Bogies usually end up losing their fights.